All right, can I start my Star Wars panel? I'm going to go away. Take it away, Ken Lyle. Bye-bye. How you guys all doing? Good. I usually like to ask, like, you know, where you guys are growing something, but I can't see anything. I can see you if I stand here. All right, that's cool. Anyway, I hope it's not too quiet. We got a great first panel, so I'm going to bring him right here, bring him out here right now, Mr. Roger Christian himself. Behind the scenes legend and the creator of the first lightsaber. How's it going? Is it bright enough for you?
It's very bright. I can't see anybody.
This is the brightest stage I've ever seen. So how you doing?
Good, thank you.
It's been a couple months. Just to let you know, Raj and I met at a show in New Jersey a couple months ago, like in November.
Yes.
And I wasn't there as a stage host or anything, but since I was there and he was there, they're like, "Can you guys do a panel? Like in 5 minutes." And I'm like, "What?" He didn't want to do it. I kind of didn't want to do it, but we did it, and it was the best panel with no prep because it's just your stories and your inspirations in Star Wars are just enormous. So let's just start out with that. How did you get into this business? The motion picture business and the behind the scenes and stuff.
In Star Wars or just
in general. Like, I wanted to see where you began, and then we'll get to Star Wars.
Generally, I hated school.
Same here. I can hear some laughs in the audience, and most people agree.
Well, in England at that time, we were there to be punished. That's all that we were taught.
Was it Catholic school or?
No, in English school. We were caned, whatever. So I managed to get out and get into an art college and finish my exams there. And I didn't tell my father because he didn't realise I wasn't going to the school. I was actually going somewhere else for quite a few months. And I got in through 3 years of art school and then saw Dr. Zhivago. And it made me think, wow, this is what I want to do. And then I was putting up a marquee for tents because I had no money, and we used to earn money putting up tents in the student holidays. And they were building it was like a prison camp in the forest. I went over there and said, "What are you guys doing? This is real." And they said, "Yeah, it's so real. A homeless comes by every day and gives us food." And they said, "It's for a movie. It's from Pinewood Studios." So I couldn't get in, but I found a hole under the fence, got under the fence, and they were shooting a James Bond, the first one. And the doors were open for some reason, and that smell and this thing, and I said, "That's it, I got to do this. This is my chosen destiny."
Which is similar to how Steven Spielberg got into business. He jumped off a tour bus or something at one of the Universal Studios, and he started from there.
So that's their destiny connections, and somehow, and you have to be open to them. And 100 letters lately afterwards that I was kind of writing because I knew nobody, I didn't know this industry, and I was told, well, go in the art department, but you'll need architecture. So I got into Oxford School of Architecture for 2 years, and then I got to know the principal, and he said, "I think you should now go and do what you really want to do." He gave me a diploma, and so my first job, through a whole process of meeting people, I was set up with an interview in Shepperton Studios with John Box, who designed Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago. And he said, "If you're willing to make the tea, you can start them." And so I made tea and convinced them that I could draw and do other things, and kept going. And John Box, the designer, he kind of looked after me and mentored me, but I was in an art department of people in suits and ties, and I came from art school and watching art movies, and was told to get a haircut every day and shape up, and this is a career.
So your first job in movies, the guy who created quite possibly the most famous prop in film history, he started by serving tea.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then I eventually, the British drink tea. So
yeah, that was a big deal. I get it.
I had to make hundreds every day. And I finally thought, I got to get out of this. So I started to make worse and worse tea and coffee. And I could see them grimace when I went in the room. And because I got myself well in with John Box, he promoted me. So that's how I started.
Okay, and then you did this for a number of years. And then you want to talk about, you're joining ILM, joining Lucasfilm. How did that come about?
I was, John Barry was doing a film, The Designer, in Mexico called Lucky Lady, and we were converting old Mexican buildings into, it was a running film of the 20s, starring Burt Reynolds and Liza Minnelli. And we got to know very well the two writers, Gloria and Willard Hike. They wrote American Graffiti, wrote some of the character stuff for Star Wars. And when George got taken on by Alan Jr. to be like the young, kind of try and reinvigorate Fox, he went in with Their Worst Nightmare, which was a science fiction movie. And of course, there was no box office then, so they agreed to give him $4 million if he could make the film for that. We were half the price in England, and Gary Kurtz's budget kept coming out at 8, so they suggested that George and Gary Kurtz fly down and meet John and I in Mexico, and that George walked bad jacket, jeans and sneakers, that's all he ever had.
Which is probably what he's wearing today.
Yeah, he would travel with 2 shirts, that was it. And I was digging salt, making a salt factory in this old kind of Mexican buildings. And being George, he actually picked up a shovel and started shoveling while we talked next to me and said, I'm trying to make this science fiction movie. And I said, well, listen, I have to be honest, I'm a huge science fiction fan. I read everything. And I've never connected to a science fiction film because they're so artificial and unreal. He said, I'm trying to make a spaghetti western in space. Now, I hero worshipped Kurosawa and Sergio Leone. He didn't have to say any more, I knew then. And so we got hired. John Barrett and I were the first 2 people hired on Star Wars and told to turn up in England. With no money. They didn't even have any money to pay us anything, to make anything. And because Fox wouldn't commit, John Barry hired a tiny studio in London. George paid himself for it. And we spent 4 months. And I read the script and said, like, how are we going to do this? I think I had $200,000. How are we going to do this huge epic? But being me, and you know, that beginning that I've described is why I had a different attitude to most people. And I said, I'm going to get this made. I'm going to do it.
Do you recall what first things you might have made? Do you recall what first things you might have made, the first couple?
The very first thing was R2-D2, because when you read the script, and it's based on Forbidden Fortress, they're the storytellers. C-3PO, we knew they'd made Metropolis like 30 years before, and they got it to walk. We knew we could make that work, but R2-D2, there was no way, and the radio control was so primitive at the time, despite what the special effects kept promising. We knew, I suggested at the time, you know, the Daleks had people inside them moving them around. We should build it round. George was then ordered to go and cast, found Kenny Baker, who was 3'8". We measured him out from Ralph McQuarrie's painting that he could only be 4 foot high. And so then we had to build one. So I got Monty Python's carpenter, who was a mate of mine, to come in and help. He had some wood at home, and he brought that in, and he built the wooden mock-up. It's in my books in War Alchemist, that he built the first little wooden one around Kenny. He said, Roger, I can't make the top. I went to the scrapyard and found a top from an old lamp that fitted. And if we couldn't make the 2-legged one walk, there was no movie, literally. So he couldn't do it, Kenny. And then Bill Harmon suggested we put his boots and staple them in the bottom of the legs, and we did that. He couldn't do it. I bought bits and pieces from an old scrap place and stuck the lights in that came, I think they were a Dakota. We stuck those in because I wanted it to make it look a little bit better to show George. And I bought a fighter pilot's harness, and we stapled it inside, and Kenny could wear it. And then George and Gary came down, and he took 3 steps before he fell over. But that's the most auspicious moment on Star Wars, because we knew then we could make it work. And while we were doing that, I hated science fiction guns. They were beeping and like plastic, so I didn't have the money to make any, and we didn't have the time to do it. So I thought, if I go to the gun hire place, I'll rent the guns, make what I want out of them, we can put them back afterwards. It was a cheaper way to do it. So
those guns were rented?
yeah, so I got the Sterling submachine gun, which is the blasters, and I
Stormtroopers,
knew that was the most number in my breakdown we were required for all the stormtroopers, so I knew I had to have a lot of those. So I took the Sterling, and I loved it anyway. I stuck T-strip around it, found those sights in the gun hire place, and stuck them on the top with super glue. And I thought, this is really cool. We could fire it on set, and it would give us smoke, which would make it more natural.
Right.
And then I thought, you know what? He's always saying Han Solo's a kind of gambling cowboy. So I found the Mauser, which to me would have worked as it was, but I thought I'd better adapt. And I did this with every prop I made, just changed it 10%, 20%, stuck the sights on the top, called John Barry and said, you better come to baptism with George and have a look, because either now I'm going to get fired or I'm doing the right thing for George, because it's really the first thing we ever showed him. And he loved it. He loved the fact they could fire. And he stayed with me and got super glue all over his hands, and we made Princess Leia's gun as well. And that kind of was the start of the process of friendship, really, with George.
And then, so where in the process did you come up with the lightsaber? Was it Luke's lightsaber that you made first?
That one eluded me, because then I realized I having to build all these sets, and again, crossing my fingers, I went into George and Gary and said, I've got an idea, because we can't afford to do it. If I get old airplane scrap and junk, I could add it into the sets and make it look like a submarine interior with a spaceship for the Falcon. And in the script it does describe it's like a piece of junk. So that gave me the idea then that there was no time to make any props, nothing. I'll just keep finding things. So I ordered the buyer who buys things. I said, get me broken cameras, get me pieces of calculators, washing machines, whatever you can find. And that story really starts with Luke's binoculars, the binobins, because I made one up with super glue and 3 camera parts, and it looked right, but I thought I'd better put 2 lenses on the front to make it look like an audience knows what it is. I went to the camera place we rented and bought all our equipment from, got the 2 lenses, and I said, do you have anything? I've got to make this weapon. And David French suggested torches, and I said, no, the special effects made some torches, and George hated them, and I did, they looked terrible. So he said, there's a box of runs of boxes of all sorts of stuff under the shelves over there, just go and have a look. And it was literally the first box I pulled out, opened the lid, and there were 3 Graflex handles. And I held it and said, that's a lightsaber.
And just so they know, what exactly is that handle?
So the camera place, he rented out press cameras to movies, and in the 40s and 50s, the press cam that always worked, it was the standard one, was a Graflex camera. And on the side, it had a battery casing with the silver reflector and flash bulbs in it. And it was that part that clipped onto the camera. And they were just those 3 parts, no reflectors, nothing. It was just there with a red button and the way it looked.
Because I've seen one, and it's like 80% there, the lightsaber.
I could have used it like it was.
Right.
But again, I had to change things slightly. And then I thought I better put a handle. I took the 3, raced back to the studio. I had the T-strip that I put around the blasters to make a different look to it. I had some left over. I stuck that round. I didn't like the clip idea where it clipped onto the camera, and again, by chance, when I got something, there was a calculator, and I unscrewed it, and inside was the little bubble strip that illuminated the numbers and magnified them. And it fitted beautifully in the clip. And I thought, oh, that's it, I've called George over. And I said, I think I've got the lightsaber. And he just, for the book, I think you have one here, for the Cinema Alchemist, they republished it this year, and they wanted a foreword, and George never does anything anymore with Star Wars or anything, but they asked me if I could get somebody else to do it, and I thought, you know what, I've never asked George, so I asked him, and he very kindly wrote a foreword. And he mentions it there. He said, I remember the day Roger came in with an old battery handle and showed me a lightsaber. And as he says, that probably was one of 15 things he'd made that day.
And soon after that, you also made Darth Vader's lightsaber.
Yes, I had 3.
And it's very similar to Luke's.
Yeah, you know, it wasn't just find objects. To me, right from the very beginning, I wanted, like Luke's, I knew that would work. Obi-Wan Kenobi's was next, and he's an old desert mystic, so I wanted an old kind of ancient look to his, and we used a rifle grenade and a bit of a Derwent engine and things. Darth Vader's, I thought, should have the way that the Death Star is. They're like all engineered and cold. And there was a different handle called an MPP, similar, but it was different, and it had a black purpose-built end on it. And I thought that would work for now. It never fully satisfied me that this would, when you see Darth Vader that first time, you should have a lightsaber that really kind of would be appropriate, let's say, for that kind of iconic.
Well, I liked the design of it because if you have Ben Kenobi's looks very different from Luke and Vader's.
Yes.
Luke and Vader's look similar. Vader's has more black because he's the bad guy. But it's almost like some foreshadowing because the same guy who made Darth Vader's lightsaber in the universe is the same guy who made Luke Skywalker's lightsaber.
Yes.
It was Anakin Skywalker,
Yeah.
or in this case, Roger Christian.
Well, it's you brought this up, but we did the origin saber with Theory Sabers, and they asked me, is there anything else you'd like to do? And I said, I was directing second unit on Return of the Jedi. When I got there, I was working, and I noticed they'd given the set decorator who did what I used to do, had given him Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber with a little bit of change on it. And I asked about it, and they said, well, we lost his lightsaber from Empire. We couldn't find it, so there was a chance to do one. So they asked me now, so I've actually designed what I think like Darth Vader should have had all along. Like,
Is this the lightsaber?
it's going to come out soon.
Did they know yet?
It's going to come out in about 2 months. So it's already being made.
But has that been announced to the world?
No, it's going to be.
So you're just telling me that right now for the first time?
This will be the first one.
So I was talking about it last night, and I didn't know it was a secret. And luckily, I was talking to the right people, else I would have been in trouble.
Yeah, no, it's a
So
secret.
to let you know, Theory Saber, who's here this weekend, he's not here yet. I guess what's
He's coming in. He'll be here at lunchtime.
He'll be here at lunchtime.
Yeah, and then
It is lunchtime.
And
But anyway,
at the end of his, well, we'll do it. But I just think he's the most iconic villain in the history of cinema, and always will be. And I think he deserves a lightsaber that is iconic, that goes with him. So for me, it's such fun because I'm able to do things that I always wanted to do.
and the actual lightsaber will be shown this weekend, right?
No, not
It will
yet.
not?
No, we don't have it yet.
Oh,
It'll be in about a month.
in about a month.
Yeah. It is beautiful. I know, I've seen the first ideas of it. I designed the whole thing, and it was a bit complicated to design, but it, and I have the whole, you know, and I go into the characters, no one ever knows where they come from, where did they get it from, you know?
But I do want to go back. I want to go back with Obi-Wan Kenobi because so Luke comes up with a lightsaber in Return of the Jedi, and it's similar to Obi-Wan's Kenobi's. And the backstory to that wasn't known at the time is that he made that in Obi-Wan's hut, which of course is there on Tatooine before he goes to Jabba's palace.
Yeah, see,
So it all worked out. Maybe it wasn't planned out that way, but it's, you know.
I don't think it was planned out. I think they made that up afterwards. But I think after he got placed into his full regalia that he got after he'd nearly been killed and got changed, I think he would, like the canon, would have gone to find a crystal. And he found a black crystal with red stuff running through it. And from that, he forged the lightsaber himself in what would have been the abandoned Sith temple. So I think that's better canon.
Yeah, no, that's verbatim. So you ended up working second unit director for Jedi.
Yes.
What was that like? That was any good stories from that?
Yeah, I was waiting for money for my first film because George had commissioned my first short film to go out with Empire Strikes Back, and then I made another short film which won an Academy Award for Best Dramatic Short Film, so George knew I could direct. And they'd chosen Richard Markman to direct. George was doing second unit, and he realized, George makes his movies for 6 to 12-year-olds, and he's told me many times it's not my fault, adults like it as well. And he didn't have hands-on with Empire Strikes Back, and it's interesting because you ask fans, that's their favorite, but that's because it's an adult movie. All the others actually are made for 12-year-olds. And George then decided he had to, because his least favorite was Empire Strikes Back, because it's not in that vein of all the other movies.
Which is funny because most of the fans, that's their favorite.
Yeah, because they're adults, you see. It's looked at from an adult point of view, not a child's point of view. And so he decided he'd better go and spend all his time on the first unit. And so he asked me if I would come and take over the second unit. And it was fun for me. I just saw Warwick Davis again. And so I got 10 days of Ewoks. I kept begging George, please, can I go and do some fights or something else? And he said, no, I love the Ewoks, please do more. So I just reminding Warwick that he was 11 years old and I was bossing him around doing somersaults and dancing and doing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. Anybody here see my interview last year with Warwick Davis?
Yeah.
Wasn't he brutal? I think it's because I'm so tall, he freaking hates me. Longwater's doing his interview tomorrow. I ain't going to that again. But just kidding. But anyway, so Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, and I got to, there's things like, got my crew and I said, today we're going to shoot. There were two things that really stood out. One is they couldn't fit Harrison Ford's schedule in to do him coming out of the carbon. So they said, can you shoot that? So I got to shoot that, which...
It's a great scene.
Yeah, it was like, because I knew Harrison so well from the first film, because half the things that I was making with no money didn't work, and I'd always got Harrison to help me and make them work when he was shooting. And we became friends because right off the bat, he hated he didn't want to go to parties and producers, so he's a carpenter.
He's a real shy guy. He's very...
So we gave him a job. He was helping build the sets. He was in the carpenter's workshop. Whenever I wanted him, he'd be down there sawing and building sets for us. So he helped me out a lot on that first film. That was my major kind of...
When did they film it? Did they film that long after or long before the scene with the carbide scene?
Well, no, during the shooting, because all these films George finances since the first one himself, so the budgets are really tight, even though they look a lot, they're not. So the scheduling was very specific. They have finished a set, move to the next one. They couldn't fit everything in, so a second unit, we're shooting a lot of stuff, and that one they just couldn't fit it in. They had to move, so they left things over, and so that I got to do that. And I got to film some of Jabba's Palace, which was fun.
Oh, which part? That's one of my favorite parts of the movie. I love Jabba. I'm a big Jabba fan.
So afterwards, once I was doing some of the I forget his name, the creature who was responding with the robots. Then I heard it.
Is it the robot, the other droid, the EV-99, or?
No, it's one of Jabba's.
Oh, Salacious Crumb?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, Mark Dodson's little one.
Yeah. I had to do some of his there while he was doing it. And one of my mates, Bob Keane, who's a brilliant special effects, he was working the table. So there were six people working Jabba from underneath like that. But I mean, he was awesome. just being on stage with him.
I do want to let you guys know, we are doing a Q&A, so if you guys want to ask questions,
Yeah,
I'd ask you to
any
raise your hand,
questions?
but I can't see any of you, so I don't even know.
All the stories there, I'm not doing a sales, but they
Sure, don't be.
forced me to do this. This is a 2-hour 20 fan special. Every story about how we made Star Wars is in this now.
And you have a bunch of DVDs at your booth.
I've got some here. I had to get them. It's not gone out yet. Eventually I'll get it out into somewhere. We'll get it on streamer. So they made a load and then I managed to go and buy them because nothing was happening with it.
And you also have a book over there too, right?
Yeah, the book got republished. That's when the one now where George put his name on the cover for me, and everything is in there about.
Well, show it up, hold it up so they can see it. It's a cool. I like the cover. I think it's a great name.
I was David West Reynolds, who was the architect, archaeologist, who found all of our locations in Tunisia, because at the end of Star Wars, no one believed in this film. Everything was thrown away. No one knew where we shot. And David, on his own money, went and found all the locations and filmed it. He became the head of literature. He said he went through the archives because John Barry had died young. There was no one else knows the story of how we put Star Wars together and made it in England. So he said, "I'm sorry, you're going to have to write the book." And so I took a year off and did it, put it all in. Thank goodness I got a very accurate memory about most things. And anything that I did, I was finding stuff that looked right to me. The fans now know exactly what it was. I was able to say what I put together from the fans, from their own kind of research.
And what do you got in that box over there? Is that a lightsaber? What is that?
Well, Graflex themselves, yeah, when you're talking about what it was, this is the Graflex company. They took the original and they made 10. So that's exactly loose. And so that you can see.
All this time we've been talking, you had that sitting right next to you?
Yes. I knew you'd get excited, so.
I have it.
Yes, you can hold it.
I'll hold it, yeah. That's what we got.
So that's literally the flash handle.
And is this as close to the original
That's exactly.
as you can possibly get? So this is what it felt like. This is what
Yeah, exactly. It's weighted. It had batteries inside to power the units. There's no difference to that than the original.
Now
They made 10 of them, and so I got one of them.
Now is that your assistant over there?
Huh?
Is that your assistant over there?
Yeah.
Oh, you knew what I was going to do. So very clever. I was going to sneak it away. But so I can't tell. Do we have any questions from the audience? I can't see anything out there. I do see one more. I think I see him. Did I see him over there?
Mic off. Here we go. All right, I got volume. Stand up, please.
Can you talk a little bit about your short film with Empire Strikes Back? Is it called Black Knight or something? It's a wonderful short film.
Thank you, Black Angel.
Black Angel, yeah.
Yeah, I decided to stop once I'd done Star Wars and Alien, and I thought, you know what, I've seen other people fail, and I thought I've got to stop and do it. So I wrote what I love, which was a King Arthur story, and I was trying to be Kurosawa. And George hated the short film, because in those days there's no commercials, no ads, no trailers. They had a program which was a 25 to 30 minute short film in the main film. And Fox put some story about policemen going on holiday with Star Wars, and George got really upset and said, "You're antagonizing my audience, it doesn't fit." And there was a grant from the British government for first-time filmmakers of £25,000 if a producer would guarantee it would go out with the main film. I didn't know any of this. I'd written it. I was at film school trying to get it made, and broke completely. And by chance, I went to watch the sound mix of Alien because it was the world's best in England where it was being done, and the head of Fox was there, asked me what I was doing. I said I'd written it. He said, "Do you mind if I send it to George?" So he read it, and I said, "No, I don't mind." I mean, there was nothing to do with me. It wasn't a link. And George chose it to be made and said in his usual way, "Just let Roger go and make it, let him have the money." And it really wasn't enough money to make it, but I did the same thing. They gave me bits of film left over on Empire, And I filmed it in Scotland because I'd never seen Scotland shot ever. It's such a mystical beauty, this especially in the Highlands and everything. So I did that the same that Kurosawa, who really was a huge influence on George. He always used Mount Fuji. I used Scotland to tell the story. And it went out with Empire, and I got so many letters from people, and then the negative got lost. George's went missing, mine went missing, there was none left, and then it got found in Universal Studios about 15 years ago. And I was offered by a company who restored Star Wars because they'd read about it. What happened was, when John Borman made Excalibur, he took my short film and showed the whole crew before he made it and said, "This is what I want." I was joking because I said, I had 9 people on my crew. You're going to have 100 people. You can't do what I did. But and then George liked it. It literally had to make a 25-minute film. I didn't have all the minutes. And the editor said, there's a way of step printing where you slow the film down. And because I didn't have fight arrangers, my fight was really simple. He showed me, and it made the fight look really way better. George liked it so much that he step printed the Yoda fight in Empire. He went back and redid it based on that. So now, I think, 40 years later, I'm in the process of putting together the feature film, which will be Black Angel, but the original story that actually was set in the deserts before I went in the Scotland part of it. And that's why I do all of this, because I'm having to keep alive while I'm trying to get an independent film put together. And these days, it's very hard to get film finance for anything. So that's the story of Black Angel.
That's a great question. Long order, do we have any more out there from the audience?
Let's see if we have any questions.
They're shy during the first
They're
one.
shy, it's early in the day, that's okay. We're getting close to, if you need a
Old man break, we should probably.
Your mic is, yeah, whatever. Okay. I'll just get one final question. We forgot to bring up, of course, you also worked on the prequel trilogy.
The which one?
The prequel trilogy, so Phantom Menace. And
Yes.
So
I
maybe-
was, then George asked me, when he was doing Phantom Menace, again, it was still tightly controlled by George, and with a budget that was only $110 million. And just to give you the difference, Gary Kurtz put it out to, not Gary, Rick McCullum put it out to all the studios, said, could you budget this script, because we may have to work in America. 400 million was each budget, so they're very tightly made. They asked me to go and see them, and I just went to have a look at the what they were doing, and then I kind of said, because I love that world, I said, what are you doing about second unit? And Rick McCullum said, oh, we don't need one this time, we'll do it all ourselves. And I thought, you're in denial.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And they'd allowed only 12 weeks to shoot, because George doesn't that much like shooting, and he had to get back because of the effects to really push all that side of it. And then I just said to Rick, put my name down in case. I got the call and said, could you run up here to Leavesden? And I ran up there, and they said, were you serious? And I said, yeah, I'm very serious, it's Star Wars, you know. And so they gave me 5 minutes to decide if I would do it or not. And I had other stuff to do, but I managed to quickly arrange it there and then, and they said, fine, come with us. And I already had an assistant and an office, and it was all set up. In the first meeting, I walked straight into it. I then understood it was the Senate, and they didn't have enough time for the first unit to shoot the Senate with the scenes that they had to do up front with the actors. So I had to shoot all of that. And this happened about 5 or 6 times, that we were the first unit in. And again, just my crew one day, this is another auspicious moment, I said, guys, today, I don't know if you understand what we're going to do, and I got to shoot the meeting between stripped down C-3PO, as Anakin made him, and R2-D2.
Okay, and Anakin's first.
So, and that line, which is, you hear the beeps, and then C-3PO says, "What do you mean naked?" Carrie Fisher wrote that line.
All right.
Yeah.
That's any other scenes you filmed in the Phantom Menace?
I shot half. I shot so much of Darth Maul's fights with you, and
That's what I was good. That's what I was good.
it was just like I was in heaven. You can imagine. I mean, just doing stuff like that. We did a lot. I shot with Natalie Portman. I shot with Liam Neeson. All of them. And literally, George said afterwards. He said, "Really, you shot half the film for me." One moment that right out in the desert in Tunisia, there's a moment where Darth Maul, there was a fight, they cut, but he actually leapt off when he's fighting Qui-Gon, and he has to leap off the landing platform and stick it in the desert, and it's an epic shot. There's the sunset behind. I had to do that shot, and there was a huge fight erupted because Annie Leibovitz was there wanting to shoot that for the cover of Vanity Fair. And I said, "I'm sorry, we're making the movie, I've got to take precedence," but I said, I will do a deal with you, because Ray Park was phenomenal. And he wasn't the stunt man, he was Darth Maul, but he did stunts that the other professionals couldn't do.
Yeah,
He said, "I'll get it all set up." We had a big platform built for him to leap down and everything, and I said, "He'll stick it in one. I'll do one take. You can have it then, and you'll get the sunset." And that's what we did. I had that much faith in Ray Park. He was extraordinary.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy. I've seen him do his thing live. Even now, in his late 40s, he's still in really good shape.
Yeah, he's I think a third Dan stick fighting champion, all sorts of champions, but some of the stunt stuff I had him do, and there was one they had to do a huge leap over the canyon. The other stunt boys couldn't do it, they were landing in the boxes, so I went to George and said, "Do you want me to cut the scene and do it in 2 takes?" He said, no, leave it, I'll take Ray to the Skywalker and I'll send the other characters and I'll do it with them afterwards with Ray. He was that good.
No, he's great. But well, I want to thank you for coming here.
No,
For our first
thank you.
inaugural-
Thanks for coming, everyone.
We're all coming. You're going to be here for the remainder of the weekend in the autograph hall. So make sure you guys come by and see him. Look, he's got a lightsaber in his hand. We got some lightsabers.
Oh, yeah, I'm here, yes.
But as always, it's great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and you, yeah. Thanks, everyone.